Well, the next opera, of course, is one of my very great favourites, Parsifal, which is a most extraordinary piece. Wagner's last opera inhabits a totally different world from anything that he ever did. One reason for that being that it's the only one of his works that was written after the building of the Festspielhaus in Bayreuth and was written with that very special acoustic in mind. But it is one of the great mystical pieces of any time, I think. And the orchestral sound is one of the most, from the very, very beginning, the prelude actually conjures up this world and it takes you to a place that I don't know anything really like it.
The prelude to Parsifal is one of the great hushed moments in the repertoire.
And the first time, I went to Bayreuth rather late, I have to say, specifically because I wanted to hear Parsifal in the Festspielhaus before I conducted it here, which was in my second season. It was very special.
The timing of the downbeat for the opening of any opera is a very special skill to develop, but I guess there isn't a more important opening downbeat to time right than
I think that's
Parsifal.
right, although of course the downbeat is silent. That's the piece starts with rests. And there's a marvelous story about one of my colleagues, who I won't name, who was not known for the clarity of his beat, and he looked over at the concertmaster and said, "I've started, you know." But it is the most actually also will showcase both the orchestra and the chorus, I think, and we have a great cast.
A great cast, yes.
I'm so thrilled that Paul Groves is taking this role on because, you know, we sang together a lot early on, and he's a colleague of mine early on in our careers in Mozart. And I kept thinking, you know, there's so much warmth in his sound, and I could well imagine him moving into heavier repertoire, and this is an absolutely perfect role.
I have to take credit for that, actually, because I remember we were in a casting meeting once and we were talking about Parsifal, and I said, you know, I think Paul Groves would be, and everyone went, oh.
Yes.
And then they went, oh. And then they went, oh. And then we asked Paul, and he said, oh. And oh, and then oh. So
it feels just right.
Yes, I think so.
Perfect.
And he's looking forward to it, and I'm looking forward to it. Because I love
the development of O's, I love it.
And then making his lyric debut is a wonderful Gunnemanns, Kwangchul Youn, the great Korean bass.
Yes.
I've heard him do Gunnemanns many times. He has been Bayreuth's most recent Gunnemanns for the last 5 years. And
I've heard him so often in Vienna in a variety of things, but he's just this enormous stature as a singer.
But brings such incredible sensitivity. He brings a real leader singer's precision to his words, and of course that's what you need for the part.
Well, it's the biggest part, I think.
Biggest part.
And such an important pivotal figure in the whole piece.
And his long monologues in both acts 1 and 3 have to be sung with great commitment and great communicative power, otherwise the thing just drifts. And then Thomas Hampson, another great lyric favorite, returning for one of his signature roles, Amfortas, which he has now sung many times all over the world. Really passionate, really anguished performance as that role needs.
Yes, that needs an intensity of, as you say, of pain that requires very special quality that Tom has.
Yes.
The language is so important, and that those two gentlemen are based in German-speaking countries has really helped them in this repertoire enormously, because it does have this mystical, very subtle, and very text-oriented treatment, more than the other Wagner operas.
And then singing Kundry, a very exciting young American mezzo-soprano, Daveda Karanas, full of imagination, a wonderful actress, someone who'll be really viscerally exciting in the role of Kundry. And it's
yes, which is a very
demanding
multifaceted part, really.
Yes.
I mean, you have to be seductress and mother at the same time, you know.
And a tough role, because she has almost nothing to do in Act 1, even less to do in Act 3, and yet Act 2 is all about her.
Right.
And the central duet for Kundry and Parsifal is one of the most exciting climactic duets in the whole of Wagner.
And it's so dramatic. Some sopranos sing the role, some mezzos, but they all have to have immense power and almost a steely quality.
And this will be a brand new production that we're creating. The director will be John Caird, a wonderfully distinguished British theatre, now opera director, but his roots are in classical theatre. He's a director who has directed many productions of Shakespeare and Chekhov, as well as contemporary plays in London and around the world. He's a very familiar artist at both the National Theatre and the Royal Shakespeare Company. I actually engaged him for his first opera, which was Don Carlos at Welsh National Opera. And he's since directed a number of operas, so he's by no means inexperienced at opera. But this will be his first Wagner. And Andrew, I know you and he spent happy times together at Glyndebourne a couple of years ago.
Yes, a couple of years ago, and talked at great length, and drank huge quantities of tea.
Yes.
Because it was that time of day.
Right.
And I love what he feels about the piece, and we clearly have the same approach to it, and the designs that we've seen are
beautiful.
Really beautiful. Yes. The designer is Johan Engels, a South African designer who's designing both sets and costumes. One of the things that I think John is absolutely rooted in is the need for clarity of narrative. And of all operas, Parsifal has the danger of being very confusing and confused in terms of narrative. And I think he'll bring to it a real precision and a real focus that hopefully will make the piece incredibly moving and incredibly powerful for our audiences.